Sometimes we experience things that our minds can't fully understand, things that make us question our very existence. This is the story of one woman's terrifying encounter with something unnatural, something that, even after all these years, still haunts her every night. It all started in a house that, by all accounts, should have never been lived in. A house filled with unexplained occurrences, doors slamming shut by themselves, lights flickering at odd hours, and whispers, faint whispers that seemed to come from nowhere. But these things weren't the most unsettling part. The children, they had always been the ones who saw him, the little boy who played and conversed with an invisible friend. But this wasn't a child's imagination. Number this friend was far too real. My nephew would speak to him as if he were another child, a ghost of some kind, no doubt. And then there was the other boy who encountered something far darker. My brother-in-law was on leave from the army. He was relaxing after a long day when he stepped outside for a smoke. As he came back in, he froze. In the window, there she was, an old lady's face, her eyes empty, her expression twisted in malice. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Something about her, something wasn't right. And then there was the little boy. My brother-in-law had been lying on the couch, his body aching with exhaustion. He had no idea what was waiting for him. As he stood up to head to bed, he saw him, a child, dressed in clothing from another time, old, ragged clothes that looked like they belonged to the early 1900s. He sat there on the radiator, staring at him with hollow eyes. When my brother-in-law tried to approach, the child disappeared. I couldn't ignore it any longer. I did some digging on the history of the house. I discovered that in the early 1900s, the house belonged to coal miners, and right behind it, a mine. Could that explain the strange occurrences? Was the land itself cursed, or had something far darker settled in that house? And then, it was my turn. It was 2005, and my mother was in the final stages of her cancer treatment. She was staying with my sister and her family. I had come over for the night to spend time with her, to offer some comfort, but what happened next would be something I couldn't forget. I had planned on staying the night in the living room. It was late, around 9:30 p.m., and everyone had already gone to bed. I was sitting on the couch, watching TV, when something caught my eye. A figure, dark, moving toward me, slowly. I froze. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe.
It was massive. 7, maybe 8 feet tall, completely black, like the absence of light itself. It wore a long coat and a wide-brimmed hat. The details became clearer as it came closer. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, but I couldn't move. I was rooted to the spot, like a prisoner in my own body. It came closer and closer, until it stood right at the dining room door, just inches away.
I finally found the strength to move. I turned off everything, ran. I didn't know if I was being chased, or if it was just the terror that fueled my every step. I rushed upstairs, jumped over my mother, and hid under the blanket. I didn't dare to move again that night. My mother passed away shortly after that night. Some people say that the thing I saw was the Hatman, a harbinger of death, a shadow of doom. Some say he appears when a death is imminent, but others believe it was a warning, a bad omen. I still don't know what it meant. I've never seen the Hatman again. But the memory of that night still lingers, still grips me with fear. I can't stay downstairs alone, not even now, all these years later. The Hatman is something that will never leave me. And I wonder, have you seen him? Have you felt the cold shadow of death before it arrives? Thank you for listening to my story. Be careful where you stay, and remember, not all shadows are just that.